Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
So last night's primaries are over. Did your candidate win? I mean, there were a lot of states involved. My gosh, the biggest, Florida, a lot of other states. I know that Kasich would like to think that Ohio was the big win. But did your candidate win? Yeah, mine did too. Kasich, yeah, all the way. What is wrong with him? Seriously, what is wrong with him? I saw him in his acceptance speech saying, you know, we won Ohio and we're going to go on and I'm going to be the president. Okay, well, you know, let me just say, that could be true. He could be the president. He didn't say of the United States that I remember, and it's possible. But my gosh, somebody needs to talk to him and do a reality check. Take him aside and say, you know what? There's no possible pathway to victory for you. You're making a fool out of yourself at this point, and you need to get out. I mean, even Marco Rubio saw that there was no way for him to win, and he's by far was further ahead than Kasich. I don't know. I know Kasich is an establishment guy. Perhaps he's hoping that he'll get down to the wire and I'll have a brokered convention. Oh my gosh. Or maybe he's hoping that he'll be Donald Trump's vice president. I'm not sure at this point, but whatever it is, it's delusional. And it's really making the GOP look worse than it already does, if that's possible. Now, another bad thing for Kasich, and maybe he doesn't realize this, is like a few days ago, I remember reading this, that John Boehner came out and endorsed Kasich. You know, oh, this is the guy. I mean, if you're running for any office, including, well, I don't know, dog catcher, you really don't want John Boehner to come out and endorse you. You don't. You just want to, okay, John, just go away. Please, just go away. You're not loved by the You know, maybe he is, come to think of it, maybe he is as delusional as Kasich is about winning the presidency. And even the nomination. I mean, he skipped the nomination. He's like, I'm going to be president. We skipped that part. But maybe that's it. Maybe that's why Boehner came out and said, you know, I'm backing Kasich all the way. He's the man. And Kasich's like, yeah, John Boehner's on my side. But the other thing, well, this is how, I don't know, maybe it's the whole GOP or practically all of them that are delusional. Maybe that's just it. But what does Boehner do? He comes out, yesterday? And he says, you know what? I'm backing Paul Ryan. That's what I'm doing. Kasich, you know, you're yesterday's news. And even though you said you've got a path to victory and you're going to win this thing, I don't know. I've changed my mind. Not so much for you anymore. And I'm going to go right with Paul Ryan. I don't know. These are kind of the examples of where we are in the GOP. It's kind of sad to watch. I mean, it really is. The GOP has lost its way years ago, right along with the Democrats and the progressive left, really have lost their way. There's no clear pathway for them to find their way back, I don't think. I mean, they really are under this false delusion. It's the only word that I can use, delusion. I mean, in case these people don't watch TV, and I don't think they do, because even if they did, or let's assume that they are, okay, just for a minute, let's assume they're watching TV. They have absolutely no clue what the American people are thinking, what the American people want. I mean, they have really lived in the ivory towers for so long that they think that the world revolves around them. They truly are the elitists of our time. These are people that have just dissolved into this. And I think this whole administration is going to go down in history as being the worst ever. And I think the GOP at this time is going to go down as being the most corrupt and worst ever. And I'll tell you, please, somebody do us all a favor. I don't know if this has already taken place or not. Can somebody just vote Paul Ryan out, get him out of his job? I mean, I don't think that's already happened, right? I mean, isn't that coming up? And you have an opportunity to unseat him and put somebody else in there that won't betray the American people. Isn't there somebody that you can get? I mean, geez, got to be, go check at the dog catchers. I mean, at least those people, they want to move up, and maybe there are some people in there who are just great people. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't be. So let's go there. Let's go to the sanitation workers. Let's go to the school system. Let's go wherever we have to do. Grocery store management. Get somebody out of there who's trustworthy. Get them into the office and get them elected. I don't care who it is at this point. We need to start getting in people who are, I don't know, I think average people. I really do think so. And the things that people have said all along are absolutely now coming true. You've got to stop these people at the local level. You can't let them get past local community offices. Because once they get into that local level, they start clawing their way up the ladder. And half of them shouldn't even have been in the local level in the first place. They're only doing that, a lot of them, pretending that they really care about their community so they can get up there and become senators or governors or whatever the case may be. So we have to do a better job of vetting these people from the very beginning so that we don't, regardless of who we get as a president, and pray to God it is not Hillary or Bernie, but whoever we get as president, we've got to start fixing the people around them too. It's not over once you get the president in there. It really isn't. You've got to really find people who are worthy of the position, who really care about the American people, who aren't going to spend so much time in Washington, D.C. that they don't care about what you or I want, that they actually listen. And maybe this will be a lesson to them if we win. And nothing is in the bag. I mean, you're going up against Clintons, okay? They know every trick in the book. They wrote the book for the most part. So if we do win, we've got to make tons of changes that don't just start with the president. We've got to start cleaning house in every single way. All of these special offices within the government and all the EPA, IRS, name one. These have got to be tremendously cut down or gotten rid of. It's out of hand. Everybody for the last 8 years and beyond, they want to get theirs, right? Everybody's got their hand in somebody else's pocket, which is you and me, our pockets, the taxpayers. Because they want to get it. They've watched everybody else get away with everything. They've watched everybody else work the system and get theirs, and now they want theirs too. And we have, bad examples here. Once again, we had Bill Clinton in there when everybody with the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and everybody was watching. Everybody was watching, including the children, and to see how you are supposed to handle things. And, of course, Bill comes out, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Whatever, Bill. But we're watching again when you have someone running for president, another Clinton, who, if you and I had done half of what she is accused of doing, not only would we be in the jail, we'd be under the jail, and the key would be thrown away. Let's face it. You and I know that. But because she's a Clinton, she's still out campaigning, for God's sakes. And I don't know about you. If she wins, I don't know what in the world I'm going to do. I thought it was bad listening to, 2 seconds of Obama. But to hear her talk, it is like fingernails on a chalkboard or worse. Last night, in her quote-unquote acceptance speech, It was horrifyingly bad. I had to turn it off. I could feel my blood pressure just rising up and starting to boil. I don't know, did someone not tell her years ago, Hillary, when you start to get excited and you start to yell, it's torturous to hear you. Stop doing that. Move closer to the mic. Don't yell. We can hear you. But whatever you do, please don't do what you continue to do, which is drive people insane when they're trying to listen. And I honestly don't get it. I don't understand how people can sit at her rallies and sit in the audience and cheer her on. Now, either they don't watch TV and the news at all, or they don't care. And I know I've seen the guy on the street, who goes out and asks questions about, so who you voting for? Hillary, why? Well, we need a female president. No, we don't need a female president. If we have one who's competent, that's great. We don't need a certain type of person other than a competent and capable one. I don't care, male, female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. It doesn't matter. We just need somebody who's honest. We need somebody who's competent and who's going to do, for once, what they say they're going to do. We don't need Hillary. And I tell you what, I already know Democrats who've already said, yeah, well, I'm going to vote for Hillary. I would like to vote for somebody else. I don't think she's going to do a good job. I don't trust her, whatever the case may be, but I'm going to vote for her. Isn't that what got us here with Obama? People who were saying, I don't care, he's it's the first African American president, and I want to be a part of that. Well, you were a part of it, and the second time, I guess you were a part of it. Don't know if there was any or how much fraud was involved, but the same people. I know people who went out. The first time, I tried to convince them not to vote for Obama. They did anyway. And then I tried again the second time. These are people I know, right? And again, what do? Oh, well, I can't vote for a Republican, so I'm just going to go and vote for Obama again. And here we are 8 years later, watching this country just almost roll off into the ocean. It's so bad. I mean, it really is that bad. I think economically, we are in a world of hurt. I don't know how we ever turn this around. I don't know if you or me are in our lifetimes, we're going to ever see that turn around. Maybe slightly, but how do you get rid of that many $1 trillion of debt? It's just not possible to do overnight. And then, I don't know if you've noticed, but in a lot of respects, things are being sold off. I know and I don't know if this is part of the deal or if these are just private people and, they have a right to sell to anybody they want to. But I'm starting to watch the dynamics, the culture, the demographics, whatever, of America change right before our eyes. Recently, it was announced that here in San Diego, or in Coronado to be more exact, the Hotel Del is being sold to a Chinese insurance group. And it's part of a package of like $65 million of selling off like 16 hotels that were all in the same, under the one roof, I guess is what you'd say. One group had all of these hotels, and they're all being sold off. We're talking about landmarks too. The Waldorf being sold to the Chinese. Now, I've got nothing against the Chinese, but as long as they're Chinese American, I'm fine. But I don't necessarily know that these are Chinese Americans, okay? And everything is just, do we own anything in America anymore, or does everybody else but us own it? This is really something seriously that needs to be looked into and stopped, as far as I'm concerned. Again, I don't mind having a couple of people from the outside, I guess, come in. Everybody, I guess, does that. But to have like 16 of these hotels at once go to a Chinese insurance group, and again, I don't think they're American. I think they're Chinese from China. And that concerns me. It really does. But again, let's get a president in there who is going to be somebody who cares enough, who doesn't want to line their own pockets, who can't be bought, who has integrity. Let's get that person in to try and turn things around. And because if we have Hillary, if she gets in, or Bernie, we are done. I mean, stick a fork in you, you are done. This country will never, ever have an opportunity to come back. It will not happen. And I'm sorry, I'll try to be an optimist if I can here. I don't see any good thing coming out of it if Hillary or Bernie wins. There's just nothing. You will be paying for anybody and everybody to go to school, to have a free lunch, to not work, to have free housing. I mean, whatever the case may be, free goes in front of every word. Of course, we all know it's not free because we will be paying for it. And I'll tell you, some people on the left, the Hollywood types, are saying, if Trump gets in, I'm out of here. Well, I'll tell you what. I think that if Hillary gets in, you're going to see so many people just flocking out of the United States that it won't even be funny. They will just go. You won't even, you'll go knocking on somebody's door to say hi, and there'll be the door will creak open and there'll be nobody in there. Furniture's all gone. Families are gone. Just gone. They won't even tell you where they're going. Don't even try to find me. Don't try to tax me outside of the United States. I'm not doing anything within the United States ever again. I mean, I really do think it'll be that bad unless everybody here has gone progressive, as they say, and they'll go, oh, this is great. This is so great. I just love it. And what's likely to happen if she got in? The same complaints from the same people who voted for Obama. What do you mean you're not going to do what you said you were going to do? I don't know. Has our education system become that bad that nobody uses their brains anymore? Is that what we're supposed to believe? That nobody can think on their own? The Common Core got rid of critical thinking? That the progressive left got rid of any inkling of capitalism that we had? I don't know. We've got to make sure that Hillary is not the next commander-in-chief. Unless the commander-in-chief, can wear stripes and have a ball and chain hooked around her leg like the stereotypical, prisoners that we used to see. And even then, no, I'm just joking. We can't have her as the president. This country would be doomed, absolutely doomed. So whatever you need to do, get out there and vote. Tell everybody you know. Try to educate them. Whether they'll listen to you or not, that's another story. Because people don't tend to listen. A lot of times they just go with emotion. They don't go with rational thinking. And I know rational thinking is kind of passé these days, but we've got to somehow start teaching people again why it's important to think on your own. Why, and again, some of the kids today, I don't think they know all of this stuff because I don't think they've ever been taught. A lot of them, and especially the really younger ones, they're taught about collective. Everything is collective thinking. There's no individual effort. It's all about the collective and doing what's best for the collective. And we have got to teach those kids who aren't even aware of what it means to individually go out and compete and win. So we don't even compete and win anymore. Winning is bad, as an individual. You can't win as an individual. You only win when everybody wins. You only win when everybody gets a trophy that comes out. We've got to stop this. I don't know. What do I do? Open up a homeschool in my house, and bring in all the children of the world that their parents will allow to come so that we can teach them something that they need to know, the valuable lessons in life, the common sense lessons in life, the rational ones. I mean, what do we need to do? And there'll be some people who say, oh, Susan, it's not that bad. It really isn't that bad. It sounds like that, and maybe that's been your experience with some, but it's really not that bad. Well, I would say, how do you know? Because I don't think people spend all that much time with kids anymore. I think the only time a lot of people have with their children anymore is when they go and they take them to soccer or they take them to football or whatever, and they're not spending time with them. They're 10 minutes in the car there and 10 minutes back. And then they're out, playing some game. But we're really not sitting down every day with them for a half an hour at least and talking to them and finding out what they know and what they don't know, what they need to be taught, what you need to do as a parent in order to get them up to speed so that they understand and believe the right things. Again, the parents are, I think, intentionally being occupied today so that they don't have that much time with their children, that they have to be concerned about so many other things. And that way, the state has total access to your children while you go off and do what you need to do in order to survive. You're raising these kids for the state, basically, for the most part, and that has to stop. And I know that sounds like so far-fetched, but I've seen it. I really have seen it. I've seen people who come to my office and bring their kids to my office because the teachers have told them they have an issue, and take your kid and fix them. Instead of the parent having that decision, instead of the parent saying, I know my child, and I know there's nothing wrong with my child, or whatever the case may be, we have teachers and other administrators telling us what our children need. No, it's okay for a parent to have the assistance of the school, but I'm talking about people who don't do what the school tells them. Their lives are hell, and I've talked to the parents. They are totally called every day. They're given emails every day, and they're pressured every single day to have them conform to what the schools want them to do for their child. And so we've got to get back to the point where parents are in charge of their children and not the schools or anyone else. So let's take charge of our kids again and turn it around. How do we do this? I think for people who have a two-income family, if that exists anymore today, then somebody's going to have to make a sacrifice. And I wish there was another way to do it. I wish that realistically that weren't true. And I don't know if people are able to make those sacrifices. I don't know if you can. But somehow, some way, those sacrifices have to be made so that more attention is put on the kids. And so that you know what they're doing, that you are the one making the decisions about your children and not somebody else. Because the government will continue to take your rights away from you if you don't. They really and truly will. And you may think that's funny, but think back about, and do some research if you have the time, about what it used to be like before progressives took over. What was it like? Were the schools telling you what you had to do? I mean, there are schools now. You can't even take your kids out of school for a doctor's appointment, but the school will require the parent to get a signed note. Now, as somebody, if I were the parent, I don't even know how I could control myself in telling the school what they could do with their notes. Because you as the parent, again, if your child needs to go to the doctor, and it happens, most doctors' offices are not open after hours. They just aren't. Doctors work normally 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. If you need to take your child to the doctor, that should be your decision You don't need to explain this to the school where your child is, and you certainly don't need a note from the doctor to prove, A, that your child was there, and B, to allow the school to know your business. They don't need to know that you took your child to a doctor. Especially, if you're taking your child, let's say, to a mental health professional. They don't need to know that. I've had parents that have come to me and said, I need a note from the school to tell them that I've brought my child here. And I'm like, no, you don't. You need to go tell the school that you're the one in control of your child. And if you want to take them out, you will. And then you'll bring them back. And then they need to teach them. So I think on a lot of levels, we need to start standing up for different things. This election is one. Our country is one. But we need to start taking back our children as well. We really do. And stop allowing the state to tell us what to do. Because that'll be the next thing that they really hone in on. After the election. Can you imagine if Hillary or Bernie are elected, what they're going to tell your children they need to do? How rampant Common Core is going to be in the schools? Oh my gosh. We really can't let that happen. And so, as you have by now, I'm sure, heard, Obama has nominated his pick for the replacement of Justice Antonin Scalia, and that person is Merrick Garland. So who is Merrick Garland? Well, he's the nation's 113th justice, and according to the White House, he's a centrist appeals court judge in D.C., and this may surprise you, but he's even widely respected by Republicans. Is that really too hard, for us to understand what's going on here? I think we all get the picture. He's putting somebody in front of us who he can say, see, Republicans like him. So what's your problem that you're not even going to have a hearing on it, that you're not going to give him an up or down vote? And he's a well-known moderate. Yeah, well, we have another well-known, quote-unquote, moderate in the White House by the name of Justice Anthony. And we see what we get sometimes when we get these moderates in the White House. I think that's been a mistake that the Republicans have made for quite some time, bringing in people that they feel that they can tolerate rather than people that they want, and giving into it. And we're already, seeing some movement on the Republican side by Senator Grassley. Oh, well, maybe we should really, whatever. And I think supposedly right now, everybody is saying, no, we're not even going to look at him, that we're going to just wait until the next president comes in and let that person nominate who they want. And not surprisingly, I should say, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders think it's a great idea for the outgoing president to nominate the next justice of the Supreme Court. So they're very happy to let that happen because they know, just like you and I do, that just because they say they're moderates doesn't mean that they're moderates. I really think that Obama believes that he's not going to get the nomination. I mean, Obama could go ahead and appoint him anyway at recess. He could, but then that justice would serve for only a year, is how I understand it. And so he's probably looking at it and going, okay, first of all, I'm going to taunt the Republicans. I'm going to make them look bad in the American public so it helps us in the election. I'm going to use Merrick Garland to do it, and I'm sure he's a willing participant. And if I don't get anything else, that will achieve my purpose. And I have the option of appointing him and letting him be there just for a year. Now, I don't know if that's true, what this D.C. appeals judge, what does he go back to? Does he go back to his old job? Is he out? Whatever. I mean, I really don't know. Nothing in politics surprises me anymore. This guy is 63 years old. Perhaps he was going to retire anyway, retire soon. Perhaps he's been promised something else. I mean, you just never know what the case may be. And if he got on the Supreme Court, well, that would be like icing on the cake, wouldn't it? And people are looking at it and going, well, this is kind of unusual because I thought Obama was was trying to sort of revamp everything in the Supreme Court, revamp all of the rules, meaning make them more liberal. But now, interestingly enough, this Merrick Garland, he was a clerk for William Brennan. And William Brennan was a extremely liberal justice on the Supreme Court. So here we go again. You may want to label yourself a moderate, but chances are you're very liberal. Does that mean he's decided all cases in favor of the progressive left? I don't know. Does that mean he won't? Again, that's up in the air. We have Justice Kennedy to look at. Everybody was thinking, well, he's a moderate, so that'll be great. Kind of, be right down the middle, maybe the deciding vote. Well, we've seen how that works. And it seems like the longer these moderates are in, the more liberal they become. So we need somebody who is a staunch conservative, in my opinion. And this guy, of course, isn't it. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Republicans once again fold, what the Republicans are going to be promised, and whether they cave when big bad Obama comes out and makes them cry because they are being told, well, this guy is somebody that you voted for before. You liked him in the appeals court, and you were willing to vote for him then, and he's just like you. So what's the problem? Why are you being so bad? And everybody, the Republican side's going to, well, I'm so sorry. You're so right. I mean, that's what it's been in the past. So I don't know. Mitch McConnell says, and I'm sure we can believe him, that they're not going to do that, and they're not going to allow a president who's leaving to bring in a new Supreme Court justice. Now, I think Hillary would probably like this guy, because if he's on the Clinton side, then any case that may come against her while she's president, and what case would that be? Or should I say cases? Then perhaps it will be favorable for her to have him in there as maybe a deciding vote for her. Another one of these things that if the Republicans fold, it will be horrific for all of us in the United States. So I once again, I don't know if it even does any good anymore to call your congressperson. I don't think it does. Not even if you call, are they really there? Are they really getting the message? Do they really care? That's the point. Some do, most of them don't, as far as I can tell. But this is somebody that we have to make the Republicans hold fast to what they promised. You get this guy in, and it's not going to be good. Could it be worse? Yeah, it could be worse. But this is so calculated, so intentional. And you have to believe that if Obama allowed him to be the nominee, and he picked him, then he's got to have liberal leanings, because Obama wouldn't have done it otherwise. I don't care what he says about this guy being a moderate, and he will be fine for both Republicans and the Democrats. Okay, I won't say it. That's not true. It's not true. Obama's not going to put anybody in there that's going to be remotely positive for the Republicans. So let's keep this nomination from happening. And let's not forget that this man, and here's why I say again, going back to Hillary Clinton, this man was initially nominated for the D.C. Circuit in 1995. By who? Bill Clinton. His nomination was initially stalled over a dispute that didn't involve him, and then he was renominated in 97 and quickly confirmed by a 76-23 vote with support from 31 Republicans in a Republican-led Senate. And he served since chief judge of the circuit since 2013. So again, everything you have here is set into motion. If he was so moderate, would Clinton have nominated him? No. And perhaps because he was nominated by Bill Clinton, perhaps he's partial to the Clintons, right? Not that he's supposed to be, but one would have to believe that he would be. So, again, we have to do everything to stop this. We have to contact Congress people, whatever we need to do, and talk to all the powers that are currently sitting there in the GOP and letting them know that this is not who we want. And frankly, it's not somebody that it doesn't matter whether we want them or not. We don't even want them to have a hearing on it. We want no part of it, of any selection of a Supreme Court justice at this time by this outgoing president. That's the point. And both Donald Trump and Ted Cruz have asked that the Obama nominee for the vacancy not go forward. So everybody so far is in agreement. And what are you going to do, GOP? Are you going to listen this time, or are you going to fold? I think if I were the GOP at this point, I would be worried about my job for the future. Because unless they can get an establishment person in there, they're watching their careers kind of go down the toilet at this point. And they've got to be very careful now about what they do and how, if it all doesn't work out in their favor, the American people are not going to like it and they're going to remember it. And when it comes election time for their seat, they're going to have to find something else to do, some other job that they can do and be of no benefit to the American public, and perhaps even a private job. Anyway, so let's just get out there and make sure that our voices are heard by the GOP. So Apple is back in the news again, and this time Apple is very thankful for protesters. The group Fight for the Future, behind the protests outside the FBI headquarters and the Apple stores last month, is planning another show of support for Apple's fight to preserve encryption. Now, you may remember that the DOJ, FBI, Obama are asking that Apple create software, essentially, that will open up the iPhone for the San Bernardino terrorist, his iPhone. And they want to get in there and they want to hear what is, if anything, was being said in connection with what happened. And again, I always go back to where they were talking about, there's no connection. There's no connection to ISIS. It's isolated incident. So why do you need to get in the phone then if you're so sure of that? Number two, you had the code, from what I understand, and you blew it, and now you can't remember the code. So now you want Apple to give you proprietary software that will go in there and open up not only this iPhone, but future iPhones. And for people, I don't know, I've had people on Twitter, of course, say to me, yes, but we really need to protect the public. We need to know what's in there. I absolutely agree. We need to know what's in that phone. But this is not the way to do it. This Fourth Amendment goes right out the window. And pretty soon, maybe when, the next president gets in who doesn't believe in the Constitution will be out the window anyway. With this president, it's been out the window almost full 8 years. Not all of it, but most of it. And depending on what time of day it is or what he's trying to accomplish, many parts of the Constitution haven't been followed. So I'm not in favor of Apple turning over information to the FBI that will open up a cell phone. You open up that cell phone, you open up my cell phone. I mean, in California, we already have this thing where if a cell phone gets stolen, now the state is able to, the police even, are able to go and shut down your phone and do other things. I don't think they should have that right. I don't think the state, the government, federal, whoever, should have any right to my cell phone and doing anything. On a kill switch. Why do you need a kill switch on my phone? Government, why are you in my business on my phone at all with anybody? And the excuse of, if somebody steals your phone, we want to be able to do that. You know what? Your carrier can do that. They don't need you having that ability to do that. Come on, let's be real. And we for those people who are calling for Apple to turn that information over to the FBI, you maybe you're not doing anything wrong, and I get that. The majority of us aren't doing anything wrong. There are a few who are. So the rest of us don't want to give up our freedoms because the FBI screwed up. And again, I know I've said this before. Why isn't the FBI able to break these codes themselves? Why do they need to go to the software company? The FBI, the government, has always been the ones who say, we have a handle on that. We know how to do that. We have our people. Well, obviously your people are no longer working with the government, or you'd already know how to get into the cell phone without even going to Apple for any information. And maybe you say, well, it's just easier that way. Well, you know what? My freedoms aren't for sale. And the American public's freedoms shouldn't be for sale. So I would say if you can't get into it, that really sucks. You really need, though, to start working pretty quickly here on how to get into cell phones or other things, iPads, computers. I mean, do you know how to do that? I mean, do you have to go ask Apple how to break that code? And you can't tell me, people, you know this will be used again and again and again. And if it's for this one, then it'll be for the next terrorist, because we're going to have more. It's not going to be just one. You know it's going to be more. We all know that. We can't be fooled by the administration telling us, oh, this is just random or isolated, or there are no connections. We know better than that. And we should know better on this. I really feel that Apple is in the right here. I really do. They're protecting their own proprietary information, and they're protecting your interests. Now, I don't know. Is Apple doing that because they care about my interests? Nah. I think it's more dollars and cents here that they're protecting, to be honest with you. I think they're protecting their proprietary software interests that they don't want the government to have. It's kind of like the imminent domain of IP information and IT information as well. You don't want somebody outside of your company having that information. That's why people sign agreements that they won't go, non-compete agreements and agreements that they won't disclose things. I mean, come on. And what the government's going to pinky swear with them that they're not going to give out that information and only use it this once? Please. If that's true, I've got swampland for you that I want to sell you. It's great to build houses on. Now, the group is launching an online campaign called SaveSecurity.org. They want to collect comments and signatures from Internet users opposed to the government backdoors. And the comments will be read aloud outside of the U.S. District Courthouse in Riverside, California on March 22nd. And that's the day Apple and the government will argue in federal court over whether to throw out a judge's order that the company help investigators hack a phone used by one of the San Bernardino attackers. Now, in this article that I'm reading here, it says the case is not just about one phone. It's about the future of safety and security for millions of people all over the world. And that's by Evan Greer, who's the campaign director of Fight for the Future. He said, we'll be outside the courthouse to make sure those people's voices are heard. And this is the same group that organized some pretty significant online protests, including the SOPA blackout against online censorship. So, again, I think if you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the rights of Americans under the Constitution, then you have to be in favor of what this group is doing and in favor of Apple saying no. Anything that the DOJ has a hand in, I'm suspicious of in the first place. They do everything that they can to go in and find fault and to go in and then start charging people for fault. Now, if Apple doesn't comply, I don't know. Is anything going to come down the line here from the DOJ? Oh, well, we noticed that you weren't doing X, Y, and Z on this thing that you did 12 years ago, and we really want to talk to you about that. Start putting pressure on them. Nothing would surprise me. So we'll just have to, wait and see what happens there. Hopefully Apple will come out on top and we can put this to rest. Okay, in other news, this one to me, it just reeks progressive left all over it. It's the title of it, and it's from the Atlantic. Okay, so the title of it is Racial Segregation is Making Americans Sick. Now, first of all, I think it's very interesting, the title of that, segregation, something that we haven't seen, of course, since the 1960s and early 70s. So why are we seeing that now, even in the title? Why are we seeing that title in particular? Well, I think it's because that our administration has taken us back to the 1960s. That's why. That's why you're seeing that title. That's why they use the word segregation and as opposed to separation or separate or isolated or any other word that could mean that. They intentionally use the word segregation. So the article goes on to say that racial housing segregation, again, we haven't had that since the 1960s, but yet they're talking about it as if it occurs every day, and it's something that America has intentionally done. Are you getting the point? I mean, a lot of people have noticed it. We're going back to the 60s. We really are. With this administration, with all that's happening, it's very close to what I remember in the 60s. I mean, I can't believe we have stepped back in time so far. It boggles the mind. But anyway, so the racial housing segregation is worst in the Northeast and Great Lakes regions, according to a new report. This year's edition of County Health Rankings. I can only imagine who does that. It's an annual rating of the health of all the nation's counties. So am I to assume then that it's government? It said that it added the segregation measure because it has been linked to poor health outcomes, including greater infant and adult mortality and a wide variety of reproductive, infectious, and chronic diseases. And they have this a map, and it's entitled Black-White Racial Segregation. I don't know about you, but desegregation was passed a long time ago. And once again, who's writing these and why? Am I looking at this wrong? Tell me if I am. Am I looking at it wrong? Because to me, to even put that out there, it just says, okay, America, you're discriminating between black and white. When it's not true, there may be lower income areas, granted. There may be, Hispanics, blacks, and whites living in those areas. Maybe one is a little bit more pronounced than the other. I don't know. But to have this topic to seem like it's just, it's accepted, this is the way it is, that we have segregation, is ridiculous. And this person, who is Bridget Caitlin, the co-director of the County Health Ranking, said that segregation wreaks havoc on the body, primarily by stressing it out. In addition to experiencing more violent crime, people in racially segregated pockets might be stranded further from good jobs or the transportation necessary to reach them. The data might help explain why African Americans fare worse across various health metrics. The average life expectancy for African Americans is still 4 years shorter than for whites, for example. At the root of a lot of this is stress that comes from living in a community that isn't safe and housing isn't adequate. Okay. I got to stop her right there. While there may be some areas where there's higher crime, why are we not looking at the root cause of the crime rather than blaming it on the fact that people are segregated, which isn't true. Granted, there is low-cost housing or government housing, whatever you want to describe it, in certain areas, and maybe that is a little bit set off from the population. And it's curious again because this is at a time when Obama wants to bring everybody together and have no real separation at all from anything, I suppose. But this, to me, again, causes more problems than it's worth. We're not looking at, okay, is there a higher crime rate because, like in Chicago, for example, black-on-black crime. That's not caused from the house that you live in. That caused from the actions that you do. Now, admittedly, there may be more acts of crime and violence within the city. I don't think it's relegated to one section. Could be. But again, we're looking at behavior. Are we going to blame the behavior on the fact that you live in, let's say if this is true, are we going to blame the behavior on the fact that you live in a certain section of town? Are we never going to accept responsibility for what we do? And that would be my question. And let's say this is true. Are the children there unhealthy? Well, it could be. Poor economic areas tend to have people who maybe have health issues or don't have the money to do what other people do. I mean, that's been that way since the beginning of time. And you can't, putting your house in the same neighborhood with everybody else, let's say, where we're no longer segregated, how is that going to change the behavior? How is that going to change the reality of a situation of somebody who, let's say, is economically poor, who can't afford the same health care? I thought that's what Obamacare was all about, that we were going to give everybody the same standard of care, per se, because everybody was going to have an opportunity to have health care. Well, if that's true, then why are we still seeing anything like that in areas where people are supposedly segregated? Shouldn't they have the same health care? Shouldn't they be able to go to the doctors now and pay to be seen by a doctor? Why should you have poor health? Is there stress? So you're telling me that if you move into an area where there's no longer quote-unquote segregation, your stress levels are going to go away. You're going to have different stresses. There's no place that you can go where you have no stress. There's always going to be some stress level. And it may be that if you move into an area with everybody else that you're not used to moving into and you want to continue to do what you've always done in your own neighborhood, maybe it won't be acceptable or as acceptable in your new neighborhood, and you're going to have that stress to deal with. I don't know. And I'm not sitting here, I'm not closing my eyes to poor economic conditions. Trust me. I grew up in those situations. I know exactly what that feels like. I know exactly what that looks like. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I get it. And I also know that when I grew up in those areas, and economically poor areas, that my behavior was expected to be the same as everyone else's. I didn't get a pass because my family was economically poor. We didn't get a pass. We didn't get somebody to say, "Oh, well, you're financially you're not as well off as everybody else, and so therefore, if you commit a crime, we understand." Sorry, it didn't work that way. We've allowed people of every economic situation now, just about, to get a pass on behavior, a criminal behavior, or inappropriate behaviors to a good, effective society. And I don't think it has to do with people who may be living in that type of situation. And I wouldn't call them racially segregated populations. If you want to know what segregation looks like, you only have to go back before desegregation to see what that looks like. again, if you want to call it by some other name, we can have a conversation. But if you're trying to go back and trying to insinuate something, then, we can't have that conversation because you're not having a real conversation. Again, it has to do not with race, I think, in this situation. It has to do with economics. And it has to also do with behaviors that society is accepting because of, political correctness, because they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to have a real conversation, things like that. That's what the cause is. That's what the real root of the problem is. And until we can have that situation, we're talking apples and oranges. We're talking you want to create an issue that isn't there. Is it because, maybe like I said at the beginning, some of these people who are living in housing that are poor economically, maybe they are black. Maybe they are Hispanic. Maybe they are white. I don't know the percentages. Is that what's causing African Americans to live 4 years less than whites? I don't know. Is it because they're getting shot and killed on the streets of Chicago? So let's not talk apples and oranges, and let's not look at every report. Again, the left is so good at saying, our experts say, or we did a study on, and you're supposed to go, oh, okay, then you have the solution. This is it. This is the truth. We all believe this now, and everything is, we believe everything you say, so it must be true. We must segregate our population still, and everything that you've talked about is absolutely true. No, I'm not buying it because I know the game. I know the game. I also know the political climate, and that is Obama wanting everybody being so divisive, wanting to totally divide the races and come out with, okay, we're gonna end. He practically said we're going to end segregation, and we're going to put everybody together, whether you like it or not. These people are going to be in your neighborhoods. Well, people are in everybody else's neighborhoods now. If you look on my street, my gosh, we're such a diverse neighborhood. I don't know how you could get any more diverse. And it's not a bad thing. And guess what? People actually, I know it's California and everybody has their stereotypes. People actually talk to their neighbors in the area where I live, at least in California. We know our neighbors. We wave at them. We say hi. And my neighbors, gosh, I hate to break the stereotype, but my neighbors on one side of me are a diverse couple in their own marriage. And on holidays and other times just because they want to, they bring my husband and I over goodies that the woman has baked. And my gosh, let me tell you, best goodies I've ever had. But I'm supposed to believe that nobody on my street or in my neighborhood, there are no black people, no Hispanics, no Asian. It's all a white street. Well, I hate to break the stereotype, but that's just not the reality. And I think this article they're not in reality either. It's a political agenda that they're trying to push for this president, and they're coming out with statistics and using language that's absolutely inappropriate to reality. It just doesn't exist. And they're trying once again, using words like segregation to divide the races. I mean, if anybody falls for that, then you haven't been listening to the news to see what's going on in the politics with this president. So don't fall for articles like that. Don't fall for quote-unquote government experts or any other experts that the government may use. Find out your own facts first, because pretty much what you think is true, what's in your gut, what your intuition is telling you, and your gut is telling you, that's probably the truth. So don't let them influence you other ways, and don't let them try to separate you from your neighbor because they want to try to say that you're racist. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what this article is really subtly trying to do. So don't fall for it. You're very wise, and you know that you are. And, and hopefully this president will go away quietly by next year. Until then, it's Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News.